Chapter 3.5, Solving Circumference Problems. So circumference is just perimeter for a circle, and you've already done this in elementary, junior high, but again, the only difference here is that maybe you have to do some conversions between units. So kind of putting more than one concept together. It does say that you will need a compass, string, and scissors. We're not going to form a circle together. We're not going to construct that. So we're going to skip this. So we're going to skip this. You've done that before, as I said, in earlier years. Let's take a look at some of the actual calculations. So Simon works for the city water department. He is ordering the liner for a new overflow tunnel at the pumping station. If the radius of the tunnel is 12 feet, what should the circumference of the tunnel liner be? So we want to know this distance here, okay? And so we're given the radius, r. So what is the diameter? So you will have learned, hopefully, two different formulas for calculating the circumference. You'll have learned pi times diameter. It's over on the left here, okay? Or you will have, so this is C equals, or C equals 2 pi r. They're exactly the same because the diameter is twice the radius. So you can use 2 pi r or you can use pi d. I don't really care. In the workbook here, it just does this in kind of steps. It converts the radius to diameter. So the radius is 12, multiplied by 2 is 24, and then it uses pi times diameter. But you can do it all at once. So pi times 24. Now, when you do this in your calculator, if we're finding the decimal form, sometimes we might leave it as 24 pi feet. Okay, if we're asked, you'll see an approximate sign, we want to get the decimal form. You may have in the past used 3.14. I don't want you to. You should have a scientific calculator, and you should have if you do, you should have a pi button. So on my calculator, it's actually not a button, I have to press the second key. So if you have a TI calculator, you go second and the exponent key, this kappa. So, and you should see the pi there. If you press enter on it, it'll show pi's with a bunch of decimal places. There are an infinite number of decimal places. So this is, it's an irrational number, which you've probably already talked about as well. In any case, we do not want to approximate with 3.14 because we'll miss out. Especially if we use big numbers, it won't be as accurate. So in your calculation, just go pi times 24, and then you can round if you need to. So 75 doesn't say what to round to. If we go to one decimal place, 0.4. Okay, you can't show, I mean, there's a bunch of decimal places. There's more if we had a bigger calculator, but that's what you want to do. You do not want to use 3.14 anymore. When you had calculators that didn't have pi, yeah, you had to, but not anymore. And if you go on and take 10C in the future, you will sometimes leave it just as 24 pi. Okay, so next page. Oops, next page. The stone center of the Majorville medicine wheel has a circumference of 28 meters. The outer wheel has a circumference of 85. About how long are the spokes? So you've got to think about this. Notice where the spokes are here. So if you are talking about spokes on some wheels, they might go right from the center, right? Okay, but this doesn't. So this is a spoke here, a little crooked, but if we continue it, it goes to the center. Okay, so we want to find just this solid distance here. If we can figure out the entire distance and subtract the dotted, then we'll get the solid part. So that's really saying what is the radius of the big outside, the outer wheel, what's the radius of the inner small circle, and then subtract them. So it says, what equation can give you the diameter of the outer wheel if you know its circumference? So, so I was just talking about radius. They're talking about diameter here. So circumference is pi times diameter. So if we solve this for diameter, its circumference, I'll just use c, divided by pi. Okay, so that's what we're going to do for both of these circles. That will give us our diameter, and then we can then get the radius. So what is the diameter of the outer wheel? Outer is 85 meters for circumference, divided by pi. So let's get our calculator out. 85 divided by pi. And that's 27 point, I'm going to go a few decimal places, 056. Okay, and then what is the diameter of the stone center? So that was 28 divided by pi. So 28 divided by pi. If you have a graphing calculator like mine, don't clear it. Leave these because I'll show you how you can use your calculator to help you. So to 3 decimal places, 8.913. So about how long are the spokes? So the length of 2 spokes, take a look, the length of 2 spokes plus the center diameter, right? So that kind of goes out. So there we go, will equal the wheel diameter. Okay, so so the center diameter, we found that was 8.913, and the hole diameter was 27.056. So now, to get the length of 2 spokes, we want to subtract that. So really what we're doing is we're subtracting the whole thing by the inside diameter. Okay. As I mentioned before, you can talk about the radius and do it that way. So there are different ways. So if you subtract that, you'll get the answer. I'll show you, if you have a graphing calculator that's newer, you can go up to the entire diameter, enter on it, it will copy it out, then subtract, cursor up to the last one, enter on it, and so it basically copies out those values for you. So you get 18.144, and then divide that by 2. If you don't have that capability, you just copy out the numbers. Okay, still going to 3 decimal places, and then now we'll round. It's really about 9 meters long. Okay, if you do that. Talks about pi here. If your calculator doesn't have the key, use 3.14, but we are requiring you to have a scientific calculator, so you should have that. Okay, and that's the end of 3.5.